Colombia was getting a lot of this grant work, and their Middle East Studies program is because the Israeli government was the big blocker on the Iran deal. So, what I'm saying is there's always going to be this function. We're always going to have this control mechanism. You don't want to be a country who is not able to influence the course of events. It's easy to say no covert action at all while you're enjoying low gas prices, cheap products, and it looks like all your major, Fortune 500 companies are just best in class. ExxonMobil is the biggest oil company in the world. That's because ExxonMobil is so good. No, that's because Rex Tillerson didn't become Secretary of State because he had a long, storied career working his way up the State Department. It's because ExxonMobil is a outgrowth of the U.S. State Department. We didn't have cheap bananas in this country because our banana companies are so good. It's because we used the Department of War to seize Guatemala and Nicaragua. And
I do like bananas, though. I was okay with that one.
This is what I'm saying.
So I'll throw that out there.
It's easy to say don't do any of this when you are living in the legacy of it and you have been the beneficiary of it and you've never experienced what it's like to be a small, isolated country who does not have these capacities in place. But at some point, it goes too far. At some point, you're applying to we're trying to de-wokeify, Harvard right now. Republicans are, conservatives are. We're trying to. You look at something like Columbia University, which is in the crosshairs right now. Columbia gets I think $400 million or something in government grants. Uh-huh. And you've got Columbia University was a big outgrowth of Democrat foreign policy on Iran. The Columbia Foreign Policy Network, the Middle East Studies, was a big part of this, and so was Harvard around foreign policy around the Iran deal. Opening up Iran, relieving international sanctions, so that we could profit from the world's second largest supply of oil and third largest supply of gas, and we could exert influence over Iran as opposed to some of its allies with China and the like. But what happens when Colombia itself gets caught in that proxy war? Like when institutions become arms of the state, that is not a small thing, and especially when you can start small because we have some crisis that's popping off and they're the ones positioned to do it. But as these Jenga towers scale over years and decades, you lose sight of the fact that it's supposed to be a university. It's supposed to be teaching what is the core function of something when it gets so deep in statecraft that any attempt to reform its fundamental function is going to interfere with its government function.
That's right.
What's happening at Columbia University right now is, and I don't even agree with the reason Trump is going after it. I don't think that this predicate around going after it on anti-Semitism grounds syncs well with a lot of the free speech diplomacy that the Trump administration is trying to do.
It doesn't at all, but there's a huge double standard when it comes to Israel with this administration. It's just how it is.
And part of the issue is Colombia was getting a lot of this grant work, and their Middle East Studies program is because the Israeli government was the big blocker on the Iran deal. So you have all of these, these webs of influence. I mean, this was something that even Ehud Barak was involved in when he was working with the Jake Sullivan West Exec Network, and Avril Haines and all those State Department in waiting folks, and Bill Burns. Yeah. Bill Burns was the lead negotiator on the Iran deal. But the problem is now Colombia, if you are trying to, for example, the DEI thing does get connected. This is one of these strange alliances between the base of MAGA world and a lot of the kind of, donor networks where you have, commonalities. For example, the foreign policy side of Trump world is very focused on Israel. The domestic policy side is mostly focused on things like anti-wokeness and investing in our own infrastructure and the like. And there are places that they meet in a very tangential way, around the universities.
That's right.
And so you have Columbia University. There's this weird phenomenon that's happened where it's like the administration that the people voted for do not want their kids indoctrinated in this like crazy DEI woke stuff, but there is a natural nexus between the DEI world and the like pro-Palestine, like anti-settler colonialism,
there's a lot of
anti-US
weird funding with all that too. A lot of weird organizations that just want chaos, Joker style.
Right, and they also want foreign. I mean, this is another thing. Like you look at something like Soros, which both again like the MAGA base don't like because of him funding all these woke initiatives and these rent-a-riot mobs. But same thing with the Empower Israeli government. Netanyahu and Soros have been at war for a decade. Netanyahu actually
it might be the only thing I agree with George on.
But this is the funny thing is like Netanyahu, you can actually pull this up. I think it was in 2018. Netanyahu accused Soros of funding race riots inside of Israel with I think Ethiopian immigrants to Israel, funding race riots against the Netanyahu government, which is the same thing that the MAGA base accuses George Soros of funding with BLM. But what I'm getting at here is how does something like here?
Yeah, I don't believe a word this piece of shit says. Honestly, at this point, if you've seen Netanyahu's pending criminal trial that he keeps on putting off by declaring some fucking new war every week and committing all the acts of everything he's doing, including in Gaza, like they have him dead to rights. All of his friends are on deposition. You can go look at these fucking tapes yourself, where he is so very clearly guilty of all these bribery charges, and he's putting it off by creating wars and lying to his people and over and over again, and fucking literally gaslighting everyone into buying him as like leader of this country. So much so that we're sitting here talking about George Soros, who I think is a pretty reprehensible individual. And I honestly, like, I'm inclined to be on George's side on this one. That's how crazy things have gotten.
Both things can be true at the same time. I mean, there was USA,
maybe,
and this is part of the complication of it, and part of the proxy war that's playing out in our own domestic politics. Like, you can have corruption and starting wars in order to postpone like criminal trials, and yet you have this strong alliance with the Trump government. I mean, this is this foreign policy, domestic affairs divide where you have like the MAGA base, who I think did not want to get involved with like the strikes on Iran, for example.
Of course not.
And the Netanyahu government started that. I mean, they did the sneak attack while Trump was trying to negotiate with Iran about a second Iran deal.
And then made Trump go in and do the bombing, which you wonder why.
Right. But
why?
this is one of these things where the structure of the MAGA movement is in a very interesting place, because neither faction within MAGA world can win without the support of the others, I don't believe.
That may be true, but there's now a giant dynamite that's been injected into the middle of that with this whole Epstein file thing.
Right. And this is literally in the fact that it's...
Let's bring... I'm about to pee myself, Mike. I'm sorry. Let me just stop for 1 second, and we'll bring it back so that you can run through all the Epstein file stuff right when we get back.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.